Public Affairs very much thanks Residco, our sole corporate underwriter, for helping to make the production of this show possible.
Additional schools would be great. I want parents to be able to select selective enrollment schools. A lot of our families in District 1 actually do. And so that is one of their choices. Of course, charter schools is an option. We don't have as many charter schools in District 1. And of course, parochial schools or private schools, because again, I believe that those options should be left to the parent.
If we could wave a magic wand, make you president of the School CPS Board. So, on October 1, you're president, and you were leading the board, lead the city of Chicago. What's the big issue?
The big issue is definitely the budget. When you think about almost 2/3 of property taxes goes to CPS, and right now we're almost a $10 billion organization. And with a $500 million deficit, and depending on how the contract negotiations goes, it can go almost to $1 billion in a deficit. That is a key issue, because I know that the citizens of Chicago want a strong return on investment, and we should be able to deliver on that with a $10 billion budget. And so that is a key issue. That's why I want budget transparency, and that's one of my key things that I am standing for and what I'm fighting for to be on the school board.
So how much tell everybody in the city of Chicago, I'm sure you know, how much do we spend per kid per year on average for our 323,000 students? What does each kid, each student at CPS get expended or spent on him or her?
Yes, roughly around $30,000.
$30,000. Do you think that's enough? If I'm a taxpayer or not, if I'm a parent, if I'm a resident of Chicago, do you think I'd think $30,000 should be enough to produce a quality education?
I do believe that my neighbors probably feel like $30,000 sounds like a lot of money, and we should be able to sit there and see, like, my child is doing a great job in school and can have a great future because of how much money we have spent on every single child in CPS.
But are we doing that? If you're now, for this show, you're president of the CPS Board. Have 7 board members, you're one of 7. We're in that fantasy world of Jeff Berkowitz, okay?
All right.
So you're now the president. Address the public. I'm a reporter, and I've asked you, I said, well, is it enough? It sounds like you said, yeah, that should be enough, 30,000. Are we performing? Is CPS performing? Give us a grade. Give them a grade, A to F, grade CPS. Yeah. In performance, and especially, well, let me leave it just at that. Are they performing? Are they educating our kids well?
Our scores are not acceptable. I, as a parent, would want and do want my child to be successful in everything that she does in school, and I want that for all 320,000 children. And the fact, when you look at our student achievement data, that our kids are not performing, only around 25% of our kids are reading on grade level, that's not acceptable.
25%. How long has that been the case, roughly? I know you've been, look, people may not know this, but this is somebody who's been around education for about a quarter of a century, right?
Oh, yeah. Maybe
Teacher.
A little old there, but yeah.
Well, no, you're still a young lady, okay? But she started when she was 12.
Yeah, exactly.
So you're really teacher, principal, chief academic officer in various states around the country, including Illinois, including Chicago, doing a lot with charter schools. Have I left anything out that you've been doing in education?
And now I do executive coaching for superintendents across the country.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you would know, you said we're not performing. Only 1 out of every 4 kids currently reads at grade level, right?
Correct.
At CPS. That's overall. I mean, you've looked at this. I know you haven't been here for 10 to 20 years, but you've heard the data. With your view, what's been happening for the last 20 years to that statistic we're talking about now?
Yeah, especially after COVID, we have seen our student achievement go down, just like our population has gone down. And we know that there is a correlation or a connection around, like, people want good schools for their children. And so if we want to see the vitality of the city to move, we have to create an education center where every child is getting the supports that they need and thriving in our city. And that is not what is occurring right now. And that's why I want to be on the Chicago School Board, because I want to make sure that we're getting a return on our investment, that every single dollar that we're looking at is actually doing what it's supposed to do.
So what, as president of the school board in this fictional world of Jeff Berkowitz, what's the first thing you do? Say we're having this school board meeting, and I'm a wise guy, and I stand up, there's public participation. I said, seems to me, I've been coming to these school board meetings from time to time. I don't think you folks have ever talked about the percentage of kids reading at grade level.
And
Michelle, Pierre, did I get that right?
And you did get that right. And that is a problem. Actually, the work that I currently do, I work with superintendents to make sure that they have KPIs for all of the key indicators for their student achievement. And I want to make sure that happens for CPS.
What's KPI?
So key performance indicators,
Yeah.
and making sure that what we're working towards.
Who's our superintendent? Who's your superintendent? CPS. Yeah.
Yes, Pedro
Pedro.
Martinez.
All right. Does he do that? He's been there how many years?
So this is his fourth year?
Sounds like, right? 4 years. What's he paid? $200,000-$300,000 a year more?
A little bit over the $300,000.
So for $300K, how many times has he in the last 3 or 4 years told everybody publicly, discussed this key performance indicator, which is the percentage of kids reading at grade level, Black, Hispanic, white, just to break it down a little bit, percentage of kids doing math proficiently? How many times do you think he's talked about that publicly?
So I have not.
Have you ever? No, never.
Oh,
Never.
I have not seen that.
I haven't seen it.
There might be some publications of like how we have done on the NAEP exams, and one of the fastest growing districts after the pandemic, he has put that into a newsletter. But if you watch a board meeting and say after Q1, how many are our students are on track for graduation? How many of our students are performing at this level? How did we do on our IAR, which is the Illinois Assessment for Readiness? You will not have that information because the governance model does not include student achievement. And so that is a problem, and that's another reason why we should be on the board.
Who sets that model?
So the board should
The board.
Because
So why has the board? Are you critical of the board? These 7 board members, some of them have been in this for 3 or 4 years.
Exactly.
You might go appointment back to Lori Lightfoot. I guess Brandon Johnson's kept them there. He could have changed it. What the hell? Has the mayor been wacko? I mean, Siri, 2 mayors. Lori, a little bit too passionate maybe, but that might be too strong a question. But what do you have to say about Lori Lightfoot and Brandon Johnson? He's been there for over a year. She was there for 4 years. Did you ever hear those people talk about these key indicators of performance?
I have not heard them speak about it, even though Brandon Johnson is an educator, as they all tout as he became mayor. I would think that he would really speak to making sure that every child is learning under his leadership as mayor. But one of the things that I'm going to make sure to do when I get on the board is to stand up and make sure that the mayor understands that the focus should be around student achievement and how every child is growing in our district.
Well, what did he do? You said he's involved in education for 21 years. What was he doing?
So he was a teacher previously.
For how long?
Well, I cannot remember.
4 years. Everybody says he's a teacher. If you teach for 4 years and you do something else for 17 years, are you a teacher?
Well, I feel like you're always a teacher in heart. I will say that. And so you should always have passion.
Do you know what else he was doing for the remaining 17 years?
So he's been in politics.
Politics? Really?
I definitely feel like he's definitely been in.
Wasn't he a hustler for the CTU, an organizer, get people to sign up? Isn't that a hustler for the CTU, the Chicago Teachers Union?
He's been a part of politics. And so
That's politics. CTU is politics. Okay.
Yeah.
I thought it was education, but maybe not.
Well, I think the teachers that are in our schools are teaching and educators. And then I think the CTU has a very different focus for their members. And so
What's their focus?
So I think there's a political arm to them. And then I think there is just a focus for what they believe is important to their members.
What do they believe is important?
Well, as they said, of course, salaries is a big piece, healthcare. Different positions need to be in schools. They were on the news today.
Different positions need to be, what does that mean?
So they have advocated for like librarians to be in every school. So there are different positions that they want to see in the contract so that they can be in schools.
Have they advocated that kids read at grade level, do math proficiently? Have they advocated for that?
I have not heard that a part of that their components of the things that they've been.
Have they said that should be in the contract? How about, like, they have incentive clauses for football players, right? They gain a few thousand yards, they're going to get more than if they gain 3 yards, right? What about a teacher who did a lot of value added? And, maybe she had some kids come to her below grade level, but she pushed them up. Have they advocated for that as a part of their contract? Because the value added, what did they do? Isn't that how we should assess teachers?
I think there's districts across the country that actually acknowledge teachers for their hard work. And we should be acknowledging our teachers for their hard work here in Chicago as well, because it is a civil right that every child gets a great education. And when a teacher is doing that, we should acknowledge them. We should be celebrating them. We should be making sure that other teachers know exactly what they're doing in their classroom so they can replicate it in theirs. And that's what I want to be able to see. Like, how do we identify the diamond in the rough and be like, what are you doing to serve our children?
So as you said, hard work, but it's more than hard work, it's performance. Is it fair to judge teachers by their movement up in terms of if they started, say, 2 grades below level reading, at the end of a year with that teacher, they were at grade level? Is that fair to judge? If that teacher had 15 kids like that and 5 that didn't make any improvement, that was her, and 5 went down, should we look at those things, that data, and should that affect their compensation?
So I definitely think we should be looking at the value add and the performance of our teachers, because again, there are many ways that we can celebrate and learn from them. I know that teachers always want to share best practices. So how will we know that if we actually don't look at the data to find, oh, this teacher's really great at doing this for certain types of children? What is it? What's behind that? And I think it is also great to be able to celebrate teachers financially. It would be nice if we could give them a bonus for being able to do such great work with our children, because they deserve it. Teachers deserve to get paid. I definitely
do. They? Because let me just go on your district, okay? Yeah. The first district. The kids in your district, according to, this is kidscanread.org, WirePoints puts out these slides that say in the first district, 32% of the kids at CPS are reading at grade level, 24% are doing math at grade level. Are these teachers great? You just said, I think they're great. Why are they great? Are they great in the first district?
So I do feel like we have some great teachers in.
No, some. I just overall. Look, you got so many degrees. You got a bachelor's, you got 2 masters, you got a PhD. Much of that in education, certainly the PhD. You know data, you know statistics. You could teach me how to do that. Okay. So on average, are they performing in CPS overall? Since you're running in the first to be the board member representing the first, even though overall you're perhaps representing the entire student body, all the students and all the parents, okay, and the residents, but you're focusing on the first. On average, are those teachers performing 32%, 24% at grade level?
Again, I think there are multiple factors that go into having great schools. And I think on the board, we need to sit here and look at the resources that we're providing to teachers and the supports that they need. And how do we get them to be able to move the student achievement up so that all children are achieving?
$30,000 a year, is that good for resources?
I think the one piece that I don't think we're transparent to be able to say, where is every single dollar going? So yes, we can say $30,000 feels like a good amount.
Well, you saw the last teacher's contract, 2019. It boosted salaries for teachers, 2024, current to an average of about $100K a year. Do you think a lot of that's going to the teachers?
Well, most school budgets, when you look at across the country, between 80 to 87% go to salaries of staff.
So we know. What do you mean not transparent? That's just you understand it. What more transparency do you need?
So the transparency around exactly where our other funds are going, what type of resources do our teachers have? So yes, one component is their salary.
87%, you said, right?
Roughly, depending on the district.
Yeah, that's a lot.
It is for staffing. And again, when you are thinking about how are we looking at the resources that teachers have in the classroom to be able to support students is a key factor that I want to make sure that we are delivering on our promise to every single citizen. One of my other key points that I'm pushing for is to make sure that every neighborhood has a great school that children and families can choose.
How do you achieve that?
Yeah, so I think there are a variety of ways. One is making sure that we are well-resourced in our traditional schools. If our schools are not able to meet the needs, then we have to provide other options to our families.
Does that, it sounds like you're saying school choice.
Yeah.
You believe in school choice.
I do.
You believe in public school choice.
Yeah.
You believe in private school choice.
I believe that families should be able to choose what is best for their child. I know from my daughter that she is a theater person. She's been dramatic, and being able to choose the high school that she's in means a lot to me. And I want to make sure that every family gets to make those choices.
School vouchers. You've heard that phrase, right? What's a school voucher?
So it is where funding follows the child to usually a parochial or a private school.
So what would be the purest form of school vouchers for CPS? If you were a board member, maybe now back to the real world, you might be one of 21, unless you were the president of the school board, which you could in 2 years run citywide. You'd have a little more impact than one. But in any case, what might you propose relating to school vouchers if you wanted to make sure every parent was empowered to send their kids to the school of their choice? What could you do? I don't know if it'd be legal, but conceptually, we're spending $30,000 right now. Yeah, so we're spending $30,000. What could you do to empower the parents?
So I think one of the great things about being in the city of Chicago is that there are a variety of options that our families can choose from. And so I do not want to lessen those options. If you listen to the strategic plan and listen to Mayor Johnson, he wants to lessen those options and push families into neighborhood schools. And I actually want to widen the options. Like, how do we create more pathways? How do we create more options that families get to choose that are strong and good options? Because every child, again, deserves to have a great education while we're in this pre-K through 12th grade.
Take the $30,000, put it in the backpack, strap the backpack on the kid. Kid's backpack has $30,000. The kids and the parents choose to leave CPS to go. What are their choices in your world? If they're leaving CPS, what's the panorama of choices?
Yeah, so I'm not sure that a lot of our parents actually want to leave CPS.
You're not sure. Some might include staying there. Just tell the parents as the representative of the first district, tell your 30,000 or so. Is it 30,000? Parents of 30,000 kids.
Yeah.
Parents, tell them what is the panorama of choices.
Yeah, I want them to have great choices at our traditional schools, charter schools, parochial schools, and I want them to be able to make those choices.
Selective enrollment, too?
No, of course.
Because the current board seems to be rolling that back.
Exactly.
So say that one more time. I want to make sure they can hear us.
So,
say it loud. Say it loud.
Traditional schools should be great. I want parents to be able to select selective enrollment schools. A lot of our families in District 1 actually do. And so that is one of their choices. Of course, charter schools is an option. We don't have as many charter schools in District 1. And of course, parochial schools or private schools, because again, I believe that those options should be left to the parent.
How would that change? How would that improve the education of the CPS kids?
So I think,
in your view,
in my view, I believe that every school leader, every teacher is trying to think about what is best for their school. And they also want to attract families back. And so I will just share two key tidbits. So when I was principal in DC, I actually was at a school for the first time with a very low performing school in DC. A lot of the families were leaving my school and actually going to the charter school down the block. And it was understandable. Our scores were not acceptable, and the parents and the children deserve better. It was my job as the leader to figure out how to make that school better. After 3 years, we were one of the fastest growing elementary schools. We created a Spanish immersion program on the southeast side of DC, and we increased enrollment, and now that school has a wait list. I do believe that if we focus on what makes schools great, provide the right resources, talk to our community and say what will bring you back, what would get you to be here, we can actually increase the enrollment in our schools. We can actually increase the student achievement as well because we create a strong foundation.
Yeah, you could, but so the people who have looked at that, PowerPoint's looked at that, using the data of CPS, the Illinois State Board of Education, 2023, they come up with 79% of the Black students are graduating,
Yeah.
but only 11%. 11% this year of this data read at grade level. So way worse than the 1 in 4, okay? It's like 1 in 10. And 8% of the Black students do math at grade level. Hispanics do a little better, 84% are graduating, but 18%, only 18% read at grade level. Only 15% do math at grade level. So CPS graduates students without the skills they need. They can't read, they can't do math. Did I get that right?
Correct.
And you're saying some charter schools can do better. They may not be at 100%, but they're better than these numbers I've just read, and they're moving in the right direction, right?
Correct.
There are lots of choices. There are charter schools, there are parochial schools, there are select enrollment schools, there are magnet schools.
You have to be able to give parents choice, and it does force you to make a better product. So I know as principal, when I was losing students, I was like, I have to do something to bring back children. And those things was a good program and strong student achievement. And so, again, I do not see us offering choice as a negative. I think it helps us to learn from each other what makes a great school. It pushes us every single day to be better. And that's what we want. We just had the Olympics the other day, and the Olympians, they practice with each other. They push each other because they want to be great. I definitely feel like all of the different options will help us to push to be great and create a great system for every child.
So, but the issue of the day, on September 30, last week, the week before, all I'm hearing from the mayor and the superintendent is, will there be closed, will schools get closed? Number one, why is that an issue? Why is anybody even thinking of closing any schools? Give us the data.
Yes. So there's a multitude of reasons why we might be thinking about consolidations or school closures, and that probably has come up, hence why CEO Pedro Martinez had a report about this, because 163 of our schools have less than 50% of the building utilization, which means that those schools are not maxed out to maximize the learning for the children in that building. And so, going back to the earlier point around how do we make a great school, then pull back our families, if you don't have enough students in the school, kids are not going to want to go. And so when we think about this is one of the areas that we have to focus on, is what do we do about these schools to make sure that we are actually providing the right education for the children.
Yeah, so you said 34% of the schools, I think you said, are half empty or worse. WirePoints has that data. Others have it. I don't think it's disputed. But it's not just schools, 34% of the traditional schools. This is excluding, I believe, the charter schools. When we say 34%, the traditional neighborhood school, not your select enrollment, not your private parochial school. Now, they want more of this. The school board has said this. They have said that. The 7 members, I think. I haven't heard anybody said. We want to go back to that model. Wherever you live, that's where you go to school, right?
That is one of the pieces in their 5-year strategic plan, is to push families back into their neighborhood schools. But I actually do not think that's going to help us. I actually think that's going to create even more of an issue for us.
Should some of those schools, maybe a great number of those schools, be closed? In your mind, in your view, would overall students at CPS be much better off if we closed a lot of those? I mean, we've got some here like Douglas High School 912 student capacity, 35 actual students there, to a cost of almost $70,000 per kid. Percent of students proficient in reading at that school, Douglas? Zero. Nobody. Would you close Douglas tomorrow if you could?
So, no, I would not close Douglas tomorrow because there are children in that building.
Next year.
No,
Would you close it? No, but they should go somewhere. I'm not saying you should abandon the kids. Oh, contrary. If you close the school when 0% are reading at grade level, might we push it up to, 10, 15, 30, 40%?
So what I think we need to do is work with our communities and really have a conversation about what are the needs of the community, understand that better so that we can sit here and figure out how to support that school and also share with them the vaccine just shared. I don't think that every family in the community wants to spend $70,000 per child to go to that school. I do think
to get 0 kids reading at grade level,
exactly.
I think you could spend maybe a quarter of that and you might get 30% reading at grade level. That would be a much better number, right?
They want their kids to be doing well.
Yeah.
So that is a conversation that we need to have to figure out, what is it that we need to put into that school to actually make that happen, and talk to our families, if this doesn't occur in the next X, Y, and Z years, let's find a better option for your child. But I think that conversation needs to be done with the community and not to them.
Who's in the community? Who's that conversation with? Parents.
But I want to go back to, again, 2 things that we were talking about. One is, are we using our budget effectively? When we think about how much our budget has increased over the years, right? $30,000 per child. And so that's why the budget transparency and the return on investment is so important. Because we got to see, what are we using these dollars for? How is it having the impact that we want to have? And what do we need to change to actually do what we say to the community that we do, which is make sure that every child has a great education.
So your opponent is Jennifer Custer, right?
Yeah.
She's endorsed by Chicago Teachers Union, CTU. She agree with everything you've said in the last half hour?
I know she probably does not agree with everything that I have said.
Does she agree with anything you said?
One thing that she has changed over time since she began is around selective enrollment, because she probably looked at the data for District 1 and know that a high percent of our families do believe in selective enrollment in schools, so she has pushed that part. But I have stood for school choice from March 26th when I decided to run, because I believe that every parent should choose. And so my action and my words have been consistent this whole time that I've been running.
What best describes your approach to improving education in Chicago?
So I think with my 26 years in education, my approach has been consistent around, one, having high expectations for every single child. It shouldn't matter your background, the language you speak, the zip code that you live in. Every child deserves to have a great education. The second piece, we have to create the resources and supports to make sure that every child has what they need in the classroom, from the curriculum, the social emotional learning. So last but not least, we have to make sure that we are looking for the results. We have to look at that every single year, understand it, make sure that we're improving. And if we're not, find out the reason why we're not doing every single thing that we should be doing for our children in Chicago.
All right. Thank you so much, Michelle Pierre, for coming here and sharing your views about the state of affairs at CPS, our Chicago education more broadly, how to improve it, what programs you're running on. I think you've given the voters throughout Chicago, and particularly in your district, a lot to think about. So you come back if you can before this November 5 election and come back on public affairs. Thank you so much.
It'll be great. Thank you so very much for having me.
And you come back next week and every week to public affairs.